Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Just going to wait a couple minutes here because I can still see a couple of people trickling in. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our sixth and final session for our Hand and Dexterity workshop series. It's gone by really quick, and I hope you've all been enjoying it so far. Good morning, Vancouver Island. So before we start today, we're going to go over a couple of housekeeping items again, because I think from what I remember, there's a couple of people who are new today. So you're in for a bit of a shock since our class today is our final class, which means it's going to be the most challenging of the series. So I can see some of you have already found the chat box, which is great. If you are new and you don't know where the chat box is, it should be on your right-hand side. So it should be popped up on your right-hand side of your screen. Or if it's not, it might be in a collapsed icon at the bottom of your screen, in which case it's a blue circle. And if you click on it, it should open up the chat box and you should be able to see some of the comments that other people have put. And at the very top of the chat box, you should also see a YouTube link for our class recordings. The link is clickable. So if you would like, you can click on the link and it'll open up another page, which will lead to our YouTube channel, our YouTube playlist, specifically for the Hand and Dexterity class. And you'll see on the playlist there, you've got the recordings from this series, but also from the series we ran last year. So you get a couple of bonus sessions there. If you would like to save that link, please feel free to do so. So that way you can redo the class at your own time if you would like, especially if you are new. Okay, so if you are new today, don't be scared by the exercise that we're going to do. Keep in mind that everybody else has been here for the entire series. So we started from basic things and then we gradually built up the level of difficulty. So if it's pretty hard for you today, don't worry, it's absolutely fine. You'll see that I'll mess up a lot as well. So it's challenging for me as well. So it's not just you. But if you would like to practice some of these things, you can use that YouTube link at the top of the chat box and you can revisit the class. So it's recorded today again. And in case you're not sure who I am, my name is Shelly. I'm a neurophysiotherapist and also a staff member at Parkinson Society BC. And for today's class, you're going to need your little towel. So in the previous class, we've had a little kitchen towel or tea towel, something small. So definitely not a bath towel, which you'll see why when we start using the towel in our exercise today. But definitely something small would be good. A hand towel or sorry, a face towel might be a little bit too small, but if that's all you got, that's fine. You can use that. And that's all we need today is just the towel. Okay, and the rest we're going to be just using our body, our hands without any other equipment. So last class, oh, good morning, Neil. Hi. I hope you and Wendy are well and keeping warm. So for today's class, you'll see that we're doing a lot of cognitive set switching again. So last class, we talked a little bit about dual tasking and how there's different forms of dual tasking you can do. And in your general Parkinson's exercise class, you'll probably hear dual tasking in the sense of doing a physical activity, so a physical movement, while also doing a cognitive activity, such as, naming, I don't know, as many fruits as you can think of from the letter A all the way to Z, or from Z all the way back up to A, or maybe you're solving math problems out loud as you're doing a physical exercise. So those are all examples of dual tasking. But of course, in our class, we're doing a different form of dual tasking, which is using different cognitive sets and getting your brain to switch between them during the exercise, which we started last time. And I know it was really challenging, but we're going to build on that today. So I can see most people have logged onto the platform now, so we'll make a start. Hopefully you can all hear me and see me okay. If at any point you find that the video is freezing or the audio is lagging a little bit, what you can do is just refresh the page. And the reason we say that is because when we have such a big attendance list like we do for this class, sometimes it does freeze. So just refresh the page and then that should fix the problem. And if it doesn't, and if it's an internet connection problem, don't worry, you can always revisit the recording at a later date. Okay, well, let's get started. I'm going to move back so you can see me. So as always, we're going to start with our warm-up. So remember, even though we're doing a hand class and we are fully seated in the class, we do still want to warm up our arms, just because that way it helps us with our posturing when we're doing our exercises. Okay, let's start. So we're going to sit forward in our chair. We're going to make sure that we're not leaning back in our seat or slouching to the side. We want to sit up nice and tall. So shuffle to the front of your chair, and I want you to really feel your sitting bones on the chair, your spine nice and long, crown of the head reaching for the ceiling. Good, and we're gonna let our arms dangle by our side here, and we're gonna start by rolling our shoulders back. So you're rolling them in a circle, and you're rolling them up and back behind you. And as you're doing the rolling movement, you want to make sure your spine is nice and long. So we're not doing this kind of slouching and then upward and then slouching down movement, right? You want to keep your spine nice and long. Imagine you're balancing a book on your head. Good. Rolling those shoulders back, getting those shoulders warmed up. And then we're going to now add into our elbow circles. So your hands on your shoulders if you can, and you're drawing big circles in the same direction with your elbows. Still sitting up nice and tall, crown of the head reaching for the ceiling. And then we're going to add our entire arm circling backwards like so. If you're somebody with shoulders that don't allow you to go all the way up, that's okay. It doesn't have to go all the way up. You can go lower as well. So just go to a range that's comfortable for you. It doesn't have to be all the way up. Nice gentle movement, not too fast. We're not swinging the arms out of control. We're just gently moving them around in a circle. Good. On your next one, you're going to reverse the direction of the arm circles. So we're going forward this time. And again, if your shoulders don't allow you to go fully upwards, that's okay. Just go as far as you feel you're able to. Nice and controlled. We're not swinging the arm or throwing them, but we're controlling this nice circular motion. And then we're going to move back to our elbows. So drawing a circle forward with our elbow. Seeing how big you can make that circle. Good. And then we're going to go back to just the shoulders rolling forward. Still sitting up nice and tall. Crown of the head still reaching for the ceiling. Good. Two more. One more. And rest them down. We're going to use our head movement now. We're going to bring our chin down to our chest gently, not too far, just a little bit. And then we're going to bring the head back up. This time we're going to go ear to shoulder like so. So emphasis on ear to shoulder, not shoulder to ear. Back up to the middle. Other side. Ear to shoulder, not shoulder to ear. And back. Okay, downward again. Back up to the middle. Ear to shoulder. Back to the middle. Other side. Ear to shoulder. Back to the middle. Now we're going to go down, chin to chest, and then you're going to roll over to one side such that you're in that ear to shoulder position. And then you're going to roll to the other side. You don't have to move too big. Just go at a range that feels comfortable to you. Good. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to go upward into our neck circles here. So going from ear to shoulder into this backward range, back to ear to shoulder. Just be a little bit careful here if you're somebody with neck pain as you move your head back. Just be a little bit careful we're not crunching through some of those structures here. Go a little bit less in your range if you need to. Good. And rest. Okay, from here, we're going to bring one of our arms up in front of us like so. So arms straight, palm facing the ceiling. Using your other hand, you're going to start at the shoulder and you're going to pat down the length of your arm, waking up those nerve endings, and then all the way back up. So remember, we're not smacking our arm really hard, right? We're gently patting on the way down just to give our nerve endings a little bit of stimulation here. Making sure that you're not forgetting about your palm or your fingertips. Good, well done. And then we're going to flip the arm over and do the same thing, starting from the shoulder all the way down. So nice, gentle pats down your arm to wake up those nerve endings. Remember to get to the ends of your fingertips as well. We're not just stopping at the wrist. Good. This time, you're going to squeeze from your shoulder all the way down the length of your arm. So we're not squeezing too hard, but we're just giving it a gentle bit of pressure, not forgetting about the thumb, the palm, or the fingertips to, again, wake up those nerve endings and stimulate them a little bit. And then all the way back up. One more, squeezing down the length of your arm, waking up those nerve endings. And then all the way back up. And then you're going to rest the arm. We're going to do the same thing on the other side, palm facing up, arms straight. Start at the shoulder. We're going to tap all the way down the length of our arm, waking up those nerve endings, not forgetting about the fingertips or the palm. Remember, nice gentle pats. We're not smacking our arm, right? Not injuring ourselves. Just a nice gentle pat. Good. And then flip the arm over, palm facing down, exactly the same thing. Nice gentle taps all the way down our arm, including the fingertips and the back of the hand, and all the way back up. And then when you're done that, you're going to flip the arm back over, and this time we're going to squeeze down the arm, just like the other side. Nice gentle squeeze all the way down, making sure we're not just stopping at the wrist, but we're actually carrying on the squeeze into our fingers and palm as well, and then all the way back up. And squeezing those fingers and coming all the way back up. And rest those arms. Okay, we're going to bend those elbows, palm facing up. We're going to practice our forearm movement again. So making sure your elbows are bent, palm facing up. You're going to turn your forearm down such that you're almost like you're trying to get your thumb towards the ground without lifting up the elbow. So you're just rotating from the forearm. Hold it for a second or two, and then you're going to turn your palm up and a little bit further, so much so that your little pinky is kind of pointing up at the ceiling. And then down again. So you're going to keep repeating that rotation here. So it's important that you bend your elbows as you're doing this, right? Because this movement is not the same as if you were to straighten your arms. If you straighten your arms, you're actually rotating from the shoulder, whereas if you bend your elbow, you're actually rotating from the forearm, which is what we're looking for. And one of the reasons it's important that we work on your forearm mobility for hand and dexterity is because a lot of the times when we're using our hand, it's not just about the fingers or the palm, it's actually about how you use the entire length of the arm together, right? So thinking about the example of opening a jar, not only are you conforming the shape of your fingers and hand to the jar lid, but once you do have a hold of the jar lid and you're grabbing on, you want to then turn from your forearm to actually get the jar top to rotate, right? Good, 2 more. 1 more. Good, and then you're gonna clasp your hands together like so, and you're going to draw a big figure of 8 with your wrists. Nice and gentle here. So if you're somebody with a wrist injury, like we previously spoke about in our earlier weeks, just be a little bit careful as you're doing this. Don't want to aggravate anything for the class. We do want some wrist mobility here as well. So going for that figure of 8 if you can. How are we all doing? Are we dreading the class? I see a comment there that says, Shelly, be merciful. I will try. A few more here. Good, and rest your hands. Okay, I'm gonna move forward. So today, let me move my screen up so you can see me. Now for our class, as we previously spoke about, I have a table in front of me so that I can rest my elbows on the table, so that way you're not holding up your arm the whole time. But by all means, if you don't have a table, you can use, your lap, or I don't know, your armrests on your chair if you like, or you can just hold your arms up. It's entirely up to you. So what we're going to start with today is just a reminder. From previous classes, we had our first exercise, which is our finger opposition exercise, where we start with our hand wide open, like so, and you have all the fingers pointing upwards. So we're not closing the hand or bending them. We're really stretching them out and separating so that we have a space between all of our fingers here. And then what we did in our previous weeks is we started with the most basic form of this exercise, which is tapping our index finger to our thumb like so. So you touch the ends of the fingers without the other fingers doing this or coming in or any other weird and wonderful things. You want to keep those fingers upright. So it's kind of like you're trying not to move them, although they will move a bit. And then you move down to your middle finger to your thumb and back up. And then your ring finger to your thumb and then back up. And then your little finger to your thumb and back up. And then we reverse. Do you remember this one? Little finger to your thumb, back up. Your ring finger to your thumb, keeping all of the fingers open. Don't let your little finger curl in there. Middle finger to the thumb, back up. And then your index finger to the thumb. Okay, so that was our most basic form of the exercise. And as the week went on, we added in different elements. So today, what we're going to do is when we do the exercise from our index finger to our little finger, we're going to go with odd number taps. So we're going to go 1, 3, 5, and 7. So it looks like this. Index finger to your thumb once, and then open. Middle finger to your thumb 3 times. 1, 2, 3, open. Ring finger to your thumb 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, open. Little finger to your thumb 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Does that make sense? We're doing odd numbers, right? So we're going 1, 3, 5, 7. And then when we reverse it and we go from our little finger back to our index finger, we're going to do even numbers. So we're going to go Little finger to thumb twice. 1, 2. Ring finger to thumb 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Middle finger to thumb 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Index finger to thumb 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Does that make sense? So when you go reverse, we're doing even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, making sure as you're tapping, when we're doing those taps, we're not letting the fingers curl in like this. You want to keep those fingers nice and wide and open as you're doing the taps. So let's do that again. We're doing our finger and thumb opposition. We're going, when we go from our index finger to our little finger, we're doing odd numbers. So we go 1, then 3, 1, 2, 3, then 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then when we reverse, we're going to do even numbers starting with 2. So little finger to thumb 2, 1, 2. Ring finger to thumb 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Middle finger to thumb 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Index finger to thumb 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Make sense? So when you go the first time around is odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7. Then when you reverse is even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so continue on in your own time. Feel free to go slow, making sure your fingers are nice and open, right? We're not curling them in as we're tapping. I know there's lots to think about here. How are we doing, you guys? A quiet chat box is always a good thing. Now, this is pretty easy for you, and you've been doing this for a little while with us. Feel free to go quick, but as long as your fingers don't start curling in as you're tapping, right? So the emphasis for this exercise should still be on the hands opening nice and wide. Okay, I see a comment here about the little finger. So if your little finger is not staying in place, especially when you're moving your ring finger, on the side that you're having issues with, it might be a good idea to use your other hand to just hold that little finger in place as you're doing those movements. So keep in mind that as you're moving your fingers, there will be some element of movement. It's not entirely possible for you to freeze and not move anything at all. So moving some is okay, but if you feel like you need a bit of support, you can use your other hand to just gently hold on to that little finger to help isolate the movement, as long as they're not kind of moving together like this, right? So see if you can separate that. If it's too difficult for you doing both hands, do one at a time. That's okay as well. Because I know this one's a little bit more challenging now that we're adding in this cognitive set where we're changing from odd numbers to even numbers, and you're also kind of reversing the order. Hopefully that makes sense. How are we doing? Hopefully good. When you get the hang of it, see if you can pick up the speed just a little bit more. Or if this counting of the odd number and the even number is too hard for you, don't worry. Just go back to the normal tapping. You can just do one for each one. That's okay as well. Or if you do want to add in a number, but you just don't want to do the odd and even number because they're too hard to switch back and forth between, what you can do is just do 1 to 4, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can just tap 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then reversing it, same thing, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's an easier option if you would like, but the odd and even numbers is a little bit more challenging. So wherever you are, just finish off that round. And then when you're done, we're gonna shake out our hand, open and close your fingers a couple of times. Just help relax them a little bit. And then we're gonna move on to our next one. Okay, so our next one is going to be the one that we don't like, where we imagine that we've got our hand pressed up against a shop window and you're looking inside the shop. So your fingers are together and you're trying to get the hand to be as flat as possible. So see here, this is flat. You want to avoid any of this cupping kind of activity. So from the side, it should be completely straight and not bent in any way. We're going to have our hands closed like this, so your fingers close and long, so they're all stuck in together. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start by opening up our first web space. And then we're going to move on to our next space. Then the next space. And then the next one. And then you do the same thing in reverse, starting from the little finger, making sure the other fingers are squeezing together as you're opening the gaps between those fingers there, making sure your thumb is not curling in. So I see another comment here that tapping the fingers is hard because of tremor. That's okay. So when you feel like your tremors are coming in and they're stopping you from doing that finger tapping exercise that we just did, it's a good idea to go a little bit slower, but also exert more effort. So rather than going as quick as you can, you want to imagine there's like something in between your finger. Like imagine there's a little grape on your thumb and you're squeezing it. So the more effort you exert as you're doing those movements, the less of a tremor you'll get, or the more controlled it will be. So next time you try the tapping the finger exercise, go slower, but imagine you're squeezing like a little grape on your thumb. Okay, so back to this one where we're opening the spaces. Just start with one opening per space for now, just to get your fingers used to this movement again, especially for somebody who's new. If you're already lost, don't worry. You can always look at the recordings from the previous class because these are all exercises that we built on from the beginning. Okay, so now that we've got our hands used to that movement of opening each of the spaces, we're going to add on to our combination. So exactly the same combination as before. When we go from our thumb to our little finger, we're going to do odd numbers of 1, 3, 5, 7. And then when we come back from our little finger back to our thumb, we're going to do even numbers 2, 4, 6, 8. So let's do it together slowly. Starting from the thumb, we're going to do odd numbers. So we're going to open the thumb once. Then the next space over, we're opening 3 times. 1, 2, 3, keeping those fingers nice and long and straight. Then the next space over, we're doing 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the last space, we're opening 7 times, keeping the hand nice and straight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Good. Check in with yourself. Are your thumbs still straight or are they curling in? Okay, we're reversing it now with even numbers. So starting from your little finger, opening twice. 1, 2. Then the next space over 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the next space over 6 times. 1, fingers long, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then the thumb 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you start from the beginning. So you go odd numbers when you're going from your thumb to your little finger, then even numbers from your little fingers back to your thumb. Okay? In your own time. You can count out loud if you think that helps. Really important that you're not doing this so fast that you're not able to keep those fingers nice and straight, right? And when I say fingers straight, I mean your thumb as well. So you don't want the thumb curling in. If this is really hard for you, what you can do as well is you can put your hands on something and you do the same thing, but you're kind of sliding your fingers along a surface here, which might be helpful, or you can have your hand just free in the air like so. So it's entirely up to you what works for you. But if you find holding your hands up is too hard and your fingers are curling and things are separating out of control, then it might be a good idea to start on a surface. And it doesn't have to be a flat table. It could be your window, your wall, anything at all that you can kind of flatten your hand against. If this is too easy for you, I would like to challenge you to try to have a conversation with somebody in your home while also doing this movement, because you got to count in the background. That's what I'm finding my issue is here. It's hard for me to talk, but also trying to keep count at the same time. If your hand's getting sore, feel free to have a break and shake them out a little bit. And then come back to it when you feel you're ready. So wherever you are, just finish off with that round, and then you can shake your hand out, and then we'll move on to something else. And then shake it up. Okay, I see another comment here. My fingers just stop responding. Yes, when you do get fatigued, it's actually a lot harder to move your fingers, especially if you have Parkinson's. So don't worry if you're somebody who finds you're trying to get your fingers to move, but they're just not responding anymore. It's important to actually stop and just give yourself a little bit of a stretch, a little bit of a shake out, relax those muscles, and then restart again. So no worries. I know this one's really tough. So hopefully you can feel some soreness in between those fingers as well. I definitely am as well. So it's good. We're working on those muscles. Okay, our next one is going to be probably the hardest exercise we're ever going to do. So For those who were here last time, you'll probably remember that we put those last two exercises we did together. Do you remember? So last time we did the opposition that we did at the beginning and the opening that we just did, and we put them together such that we have one hand doing the opposition and the other hand doing the opening. Do you remember that? Yeah. It can send some dread in the room. So today we're doing the same thing, except we're adding in that combination of odd numbers and even numbers at the same time. So let's just start simply. We'll ignore the numbers for now. We'll just start with one hand open, one hand squeezing in. So one of your hands is going to be doing the opposition, just tapping once for each of those fingers all the way to your little finger. And then you reverse that from your little finger all the way back to your index finger, right? Whereas your other hand, you're keeping the fingers tucked in together, but long, and then you're doing the opening of the spaces between the finger, all the way from the thumb to the little finger, and then you're reversing it from the little finger all the way back to your thumb, right? Except we're gonna do them at the same time. So we're gonna tap the index finger to the thumb while opening the first space, and then return them both to neutral. Then you're going to tap the middle finger to your thumb while bringing the second space open, and then return everything to neutral. Then you go ring finger to thumb while opening the next space over, and then return them to neutral. Little finger to thumb while you open the last space here, and then return them to neutral. And then you're going to switch hands. Or sorry, no, we're going to reverse it. I'm forgetting. We're going to reverse it. So you go little finger to thumb, opening that last space here, and then return them to neutral. You go ring finger to thumb, opening the next space here, and then returning them to neutral. Middle finger to thumb, and then return to neutral. Then index finger to thumb, and returning to neutral. And then after you've done that, forward and back, we're going to switch hands, okay? So again, index finger to thumb while this one is opening the first web space, and then return them back to neutral. Middle finger to thumb while you open the next space, and return that back to neutral. Ring finger to thumb as you open the next space, and return them to neutral. Then little finger to thumb while we open the last space and return them to neutral. So now you switch hands, or sorry, oh my gosh, I keep forgetting the reverse that we're doing. But I want you to stay at this level. If you find this is already challenging enough for you, I want you to just stay here, okay? Just staying here, tapping once for each of these activities. But if you're someone who wants more of a challenge, what you can do is when you go from your thumb to your little finger, you're going to do odd numbers. And then when you go from your little finger back to your thumb, you're going to do even numbers. So it looks like this. 1, 3, 2, 1. Then you go on to 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then you do 7, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you reverse. So we start with 2, 1, 2. Then we do 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we do 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we do 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on with the other hand. So I know I did it really quick there. Please feel free to go slower, okay? Don't go as fast as what I'm doing. Go slower if you like. Or if this is really hard for you, just stay at the original level we did, where you just tap once for each of these, right? So just ignore the numbers and just tap once for each of these. But if you want that challenge, you can add the odd number and then the even number on the way back. I hope that makes sense. I hope I haven't lost anybody. If this is really challenging for you, don't worry. Place your hand on the table or on a window and do the same thing, especially for this one where you have to keep those fingers open. So don't worry if this is feeling really challenging. This is a challenging exercise anyway. And you can always practice by going back to those YouTube videos and redoing some of these movements as well. So don't worry if this is really hard and you're just not getting it. That's okay. Make sure that we remember to switch hands, right? I'm getting messed up here as well. So this is challenging because you're switching between the different cognitive sets you've got in your brain. So, well, first of all, you're trying to get the coordination of the movement on both sides, which is already hard anyway. And then you have to then switch between the odd and even numbers as well. So that's adding on another layer of difficulty. And of course, if you talk at the same time, even harder. As you're doing this, just check in with yourself and make sure your hand posture is still good. So you don't want the thumbs curling in, you don't want to start to slouch. Just check in with your body and see if you're still in the right posture. Well done. Wherever you are, just finish off your next set and then we'll move on. Remember, you don't have to do this fast, right? Go at your own pace. It's not about speed. And shake out your hand when you're done. Thank goodness. Okay, we're gonna move on. So we're now going to grab our towel. So if you joined in late at the beginning, we mentioned about having a little towel like this. So using a hand towel or a kitchen towel or a tea towel, something small, so not a bath towel, that's definitely too big. And ideally not a face towel either, because that might be a bit too small. I'm just gonna move back so you can see me more. So we're gonna start here by holding on to the corner of the towel here. So grab hold of the corner with one of your hands. Doesn't matter which one, because we'll do both. But what we're going to do here is you're going to hold on to the towel like this, where your palm is facing downward, okay? And you want to keep your palm down the whole time. So I don't want to see anybody turn their wrist upwards or sideways as we're doing this movement. So keep your palm down. Using just your fingers and your thumb, you're going to try to scrunch up this towel into your hand. So scrunching up the towel as small as you can make it. And then when you can't scrunch up anymore, you're going to throw and catch this towel. So like this, palm is facing down. you're going to throw and catch with the other hand, palm down on your catch, right? So we're not catching sideways or upwards, we're catching down. So as the towel falls down, you're catching it on its way down like this. Okay, so when I throw, my palm is down and I'm throwing with my palm down, and then I'm catching with my palm down. So the palm down the entire time. So again, like this, you're throwing, catching, down, okay? And then once you have caught it in your other hand, you're gonna hold onto the towel, try to find the corner, and then shake out the rest of the towel. So now you're holding the corner again. Repeating the same thing on the other side, palm facing down. You're going to use those fingers and you're going to scrunch the towel in your hand into as small of a ball as you can. Remember, don't do this fast, right? If you can do it fast, great. But if you can't, that's absolutely fine. We're not really going on speed here, okay? We're working on the dexterity function here. So just use your time, scrunch up the towel as much as you can into your palm. And then when you can't go anymore, keep the palm facing down. When you throw, and then when you catch, keep the palm facing down. And then you hold on to that towel with the hand that you caught it in, and you grab hold of the corner again, and you shake it out, and you continue. There was a question here that says, how do you make the ring finger and pinky finger stay side by side? They seem to go apart from each other. Okay, I assume that's from this one, right? Like they tend to open. What you can do with so that's the previous exercise, with the ring and the little finger is either use your better hand to gently press the little finger together, or you can use like an elastic band to try to keep them together when you're doing the other movements. But it's best to use your hand rather than the elastic band, just because at some point you're gonna do this movement too, right? Separating the ring finger and the little finger. So it's best to just use, if your little pinky's like this, just use your hand to try to press it in, and you're trying to isolate the other movements here. And then when you get to the little finger, then you can open it up, okay? That one's, I know that exercise we did previously, it's pretty hard because you're trying to isolate those little muscles you've got in your hand and your palm. So that one is challenging, but believe it or not, it does get better when you practice. What's the importance of the down? Okay, do you mean as in catching on the down? So when you're scrunching up the towel, the reason we say bring your palm down and your fingers down is because this way you're not cheating. Gravity is pulling the towel down, and you're solely using the strength of your fingers to grab the towel. Because imagine if you were holding like this and you went like this, and you caught it with your palm up and you're trying to scrunch it, it's easier because gravity is already letting the towel fall into your palm, whereas fingers down is a lot more difficult because you're pulling the towel up against gravity. Make sense? Whereas the catching down part is more for motor output. So technically you can catch it any other way, but what I'm looking for as you're catching the down is I'm looking for that force. So that I don't know if you can hear because I've got my headphones in, so you might not hear the sound, but there's this little pat sound as you're catching on the way down. And the emphasis is the force on the way down. So the towel is falling and you're snapping it down further, and you're using that force as a motor output is the main idea there. So you don't have to catch down, you can catch sideways if you want, but that force down is what I'm looking for there. Because motor output is what tends to make an exercise neuroactive. So you might have heard people say neuroactive exercises helps slow down the deterioration of your Parkinson's disease. And the main way to do that is through motor output. So keep going there with your scarf. If you're someone who's finding doing the scrunching is really tough, in the air like this, you can then put it on your chest and scrunch up along your chest or on your leg, on a wall, on a table. That's okay as well, but it's a lot harder when you do it this way. So I do want you to challenge yourself. But if you absolutely can't and you need to use a table like this and you're scrunching against the table, that's okay as well. It's easier because the towel on the surface is not sliding and kind of unraveling every time you move your fingers. Whereas if you were doing it freehand, you might find that every time you try to open your fingers to grab more stuff, it would just fall out again. And then you kind of start from square one again. So it is harder when your palm is down and you're just doing it free-handed like so. So see how loud you can make that catch of the towel on the way down. So as you're catching it, can you get that sound of your palm hitting the fabric? Ooh, I'm sorry, just decided to throw and catch with the wrong hand. Okay, like that, okay? So emphasize on that snap sound of your hand, your palm hitting that fabric as you're coming down for that motor output. I almost cheated there by using my other hand to help unravel the cot towel, so definitely don't follow that. So for people who have been doing this since week 1, I wonder how you feel about the scrunching of the towel, and I wonder if it's gone easier or if it's changed at all. So as you're doing the scrunching, if you're having real issues with this, if you have a look at my hand, what I'm doing is I'm kind of using my 4 fingers almost together and then my thumb as a separate entity. So I'm using my fingers to grab hold of the towel and then I'm pulling up into my palm and then my thumb comes out and it holds on to everything I've grabbed and then I keep going. Or my thumb grabs hold of the towel, pulling it up, and then my other fingers hold on as my thumb grabs more. So it's not exactly the way you have to do it, but I find that if your fingers are really stuck and you just can't get the movement pattern at all, perhaps thinking about it that way is a good way to start. Easier now. Okay, great. And you'll find that a lot of your hand dexterity stuff is actually pretty transferable to other tasks as well, such as typing on a keyboard. Tends to get a little bit easier as well with these kind of hand dexterity exercises. So the main point of these dexterity exercises is trying to get you to isolate your fingers so they're not just moving all together, because a lot of the times it's pretty easy for us to just move everything together like open and close, but it's harder when you have to separate the finger movement, which is what we tend to need when we do any other dexterous movement like tying your shoes or buttoning your shirts. You need that separation of finger movement in order to feed the button through the hole or feed the laces through the loops and etc. So if you're finding this really tough, don't worry. You have to start somewhere, right? So don't panic if you're like, oh my gosh, I just can't do this at all. That's absolutely fine. Revisit those YouTube videos. The link is at the top of the chat box. Have a look at those videos from earlier weeks and keep practicing, right? Because practice makes progress. Not perfect. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes progress. And that's what we're looking for here. Because like all the other muscles in the body, your hand and your fingers are definitely rehabable and they're able to get better when you practice. Let's do two more. So two more throws and catches with the scrunching, and then we'll have a rest. And then when you finish, you can just put your towel aside. Good. Okay. We're going to now do a little bit of a finger stretch to finish. We're going to have our hand nice and flat like so, and then we're going to bend from where the knuckles are here. So keeping your fingers nice and long, we're going to bend back from the knuckles, so not backwards like this, but just from the fingers, right? So I'm not bending my wrist, but you're just going with the fingers, using your other hand, and you gently press down like that. We're not going really far and bending the wrist, right? We're just doing the fingers, not the wrist, the fingers. And just hold that for a couple of seconds here. And then you're going to go the other way. So see here is just from the fingers, not from the wrist, from the fingers bending and gently pressing down. And then opening again, backwards again with the fingers. So remember, not the wrist, the fingers, and we're gently pressing down. Oh, I just saw this lovely comment about being able to button your shirts again. That's great. I'm so glad to hear that. That's really good. Pressing the hand forward again. And then we're going to relax and do the same thing on the other side. Going to bring those fingers back, not the wrist, just the fingers. And then you can use your other hand, if you like, to just press down a little bit more. So you should really feel a stretch sort of along here. And then just holding it for a few seconds. And then we're going to go the other way like this. Gently pressing down. And then opening again, same thing, going backwards. So just the fingers, you should feel that stretch along the inside of your fingers. And you can gently press with the other hand to fold it back just a little bit more. And then forward again. So just the fingers again, not the wrist. Good. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to place our palms together like so, elbows down. So almost like you're about to touch your elbows together, but not quite. And then from here, you're going to press your hands together. And then you're going to slide the arms down your breastbone, elbows out to the side, almost like in a prayer position. And you should feel a stretch on the inside of your wrist. And we're just going to hold this for a couple seconds, making sure your shoulders are not like this. Keep them down. And if you're somebody with wrist issues, wrist injuries, like we previously talked about, don't go as far. Maybe go a little bit less, right? Because the further down you slide your hands and the further up your elbows go, the more of a stretch you'll feel. So you can modify that as you need. And then bring the hands back up. We're going to turn the palms over to the back. So like this, you're going to have the back of your hands touching, elbows up high, and then you're going to reverse it. You're going to press the back of the hands together, slide your hands up your breastbone, elbows down to get a stretch on the back of the wrist. The further your elbows go down, the higher your wrists go, the more of a stretch you feel. But just like before, please feel free to modify this, okay? I don't want you to crank your wrist back so far that you're going to have a injury there or you're going to aggravate something. So please just listen to your body and do a little bit less if you need to. Good. And then we're going to put our hands together again into a clasped fist like so. And you're going to draw a figure of eight again, this time bigger than when we did it in our warm-up because we were now warm and we did all those exercises. So really think about drawing that figure of eight to get the wrists moving in a different kind of pattern. There's a question here. Are there any hand exercises with balls? Yes, you can do hand exercise with balls, but it depends on what you're trying to achieve with balls. Um, there's a couple of exercises you can do with bouncing of balls and catching, like with a tennis ball. That's usually a pretty good one for grasp and release. Lift your elbows up, bend your arms, and we're going to turn the forearms. So with the ball ones, you can do catch and release. So you hold on to the ball, tennis ball, you bounce it as hard as you can, and you catch it with the other side, again, fingers down, right? And you can go under the leg as well for a little bit of an extra challenge, or you can do other things like rolling the ball in your hand. You can practice picking up the ball with different grips, like maybe just the tip of your fingers, and then maybe just with 2 fingers, like that. You can do things like that as well. It really depends on what you want to do. Sorry, that's probably a pretty vague answer, but really with hand and dexterity exercise, you can even do it with no equipment. You don't necessarily need anything fancy. It depends on what kind of hand dexterity you're trying to achieve. Like, are you trying to achieve, better typing skills, better opening jars, better at dressing yourself? So it really depends on what kind of skills you're looking for there. Okay, and then we're going to open the hand, close it, squeezing in. I know we're out of time, sorry, we've overrun a little bit. Opening the hand, squeeze and close, and then opening again, closing and opening, closing and opening, and then shaking it out. And you are done. Okay, I see some comments here. Let me read through them. Okay, so the question was about squeezing a semi-hard ball. Yes, you can work on squeezing a semi-hard ball if you want grip strength, although what I would say is just be a bit careful with that, because keep in mind that grip strength is not just about that circular formation of your hand, because you can grip things in different ways. Like when I hold a book, can you see my hand is like this? This is not how I would hold a ball. When I hold on to, I don't know, a thing of tape, I'm not really using that circular motion. I'm doing kind of like this, where it's just your fingers, right? When I'm holding on to a tissue box, it might again be different. If I'm holding on to keys, I might be doing this. So it depends on what you're trying to achieve with the semi-hard ball. If it's for grip strength, then yes, you could use it, but I would then encourage you to try different types of shapes object, different weight objects, and change the formation of your grip depending on what you're holding. Because that part of dexterity is you're not just clinging onto something, but you're trying to conform the shape of your palm to the object if it's big, or conforming the tips of your finger to the object if it's small, right? And it's your ability to be able to adapt to different shaped objects that give you the dexterity, whether it's a button, a zipper, the hood, right? So anything that you're grabbing, it gives you a very different shape you're achieving with the hand. So if it's for grip strength, using different types of grip and object would be really good. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me just see if there are any other questions. Okay, there's a question here about, there are many competing exercises in so little time. What is the minimum number of times per week we should do hand and dexterity exercise? Oh, that's $1 million question. Okay, so with doing hand dexterity exercises, there's not a set number of times you want to do per week, but the more you do, the better. So generally, for things like motor learning, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of repetitions per day. But nobody has time to do this 10, 100 million times a day, definitely not. So what I would say is, whatever issue you're having with your hand dexterity, whether that be holding a cup, cutting with a knife, whatever your issue is specifically that led you to come to this class, practice that specific activity over and over and over again during the day. So give yourself maybe a set target. So maybe say, okay, I'm going to do it 50 times in a day, and you spread out during the day and you slowly amp that up. And you want to change. So if it was something like cutting with a knife, maybe don't hold on to your metal knife right now, because if that's really heavy, maybe you want to start with, for example, a highlighter or a pen that you're holding on to because it's light and you're using that same action, right? So put it along a surface and go forward and back as if you would with a knife, right? But with a different object. Things like that would be really handy because it needs to be something that's relatively functional. But generally, there's no minimum number of times you're going for per week, but I would say give yourself an aim every day, whether that's 10 to 50 times every day of doing that particular movement. And then you kind of build on that. Hopefully that makes sense. The next question is there particular exercise to help with micrographia? Okay, so micrographia is for when you are writing and your writing tends to be small. So when your writing starts off okay and then it gets smaller and smaller and it kind of becomes like a line. So what you can do with that is if you go to the dollar store and you buy lined notebooks, so this is my lined notebook. This is a pretty small lined notebook. You probably want something bigger. So you know the notebooks that you get from when people are in school and it's like pretty big. It's a pretty big line. That's what you're aiming for. And what you want, so if we imagine here, so you can see the two lines I drew. Imagine if that was the line, right? So you want a bigger line, not small ones like how I have on a notebook. Start with something big. And then what you do is you make it a point when you practice A to Z with the alphabet, or you can write your name, whatever you want, but you make it a point to touch the top of the line and the bottom of the line in every single letter. So for example, if I'm writing, actually, sorry, let me do this in block letters. If I'm writing my name, for example, I'm doing this really quick, but if I'm writing my name, can you see here? I'm using block letters, and with every letter, I'm touching the top and the bottom line, right? So I know this is a bit messy, ignore that, but you get what I mean. So you're touching the top and bottom line, and you're going slow. So emphasis on the slow, because what you'll find is your writing gets worse the faster you go, right? So when you go really fast, your bradykinesia also kicks in, which is not just slowness of movement, but it's also that decreased amplitude. It tends to get slower, but the amplitude also gets smaller over time. So you want to use something that's slightly bigger, like a lined sheet of paper that's bigger, and you go to the top and the bottom of the line whenever you write, okay? Go slower, and then as you get better, the lines can then be smaller. And then eventually, if you get to small lines like this, same thing, top and bottom of the letter. So just like with any other small amplitude issues in your body, like with your arms and your legs, exactly the same when you're writing. Give yourself a visual target. If you don't want to write on a lined piece of paper like this, maybe have a lined piece of paper underneath a blank piece of paper, and then you can see the lines underneath, but it's not actually on the paper you're writing, if that makes sense. And then you do the same thing, tracing the line, touching the top and the bottom of the line so you can get that nice shaped letters. And then when you remove the line sheet at the bottom, you have your blank sheet with the nice writing. So that's a good way to go about it as well. Hopefully that makes sense. Sorry, that was a pretty long explanation. I think that's all the questions. Great. Okay. Oh, and I see boxing with Ali is not tomorrow. It's actually next week. It's next Friday. So it's 2 sessions. It's next Friday and the Friday after that. So not tomorrow. Okay, good. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions here. Oh, no. Any exercise for hand tremor? Okay. For hand tremor, so generally when we talk about exercise, if tremor is your main issue, you should be looking at effort-led exercises. So tremor is something effortful. So things like boxing for tremor is really great. If it's hands, specifically the finger tremor, then you might want to be looking at things that involve grip, pinch, things that give you lots of effort, or even these ones we did earlier, pinch, release with effort. So think about more effort, like you're exerting as much motor output as you can that tends to be better for tremor, whereas things like bradykinesia tends to be bigger amplitude exercises helps with bradykinesia. Whereas if it's balance and agility, you're looking at weight shifting type activities tends to help more with that. Can your Q&A be included on the website or YouTube? Okay, well, the session is recorded, so I'll put the entire recording on YouTube. So if you did want to revisit the answers at a later date, you can do that as well. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions. Oh, I think I see one here. Oh, no, okay, that's fine. That was just from one of my colleagues asking me a question. Never mind. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us. I know some of you have sent me emails as well with questions. I have received them. I just haven't had time to go over them yet. So I will get back to them. I'll try to get to them today if I can. But other than that, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for the 6-week session of Hand and Dexterity. I'm glad you found it helpful, and I'm sure we'll see you again in the future in our other classes. I hope you all have a lovely rest of the week and a good weekend. Bye, everybody.